everyone. Welcome back to Navajo Tea Time. I'm Kelsey,
And I'm Adrienne.
and this episode we are going to be talking about animal care and animal control on the Navajo Nation.
Hot tea topics for this month include getting your animal fixed and lack of facilities to properly care for animals, pets versus workers versus livestock. And these are topics because, as we all know, living on the res, we have a lot of animals that we don't really keep penned up like we probably should, or tethered to a leash, and they run wild, they form packs, and sometimes they attack people or they attack property. And so I was having this funny conversation with a faculty member who was, I guess they were talking to someone from off the res who came to visit, and they were like, hey, don't touch the res dogs, just kind of leave them alone, because they sometimes people try to feed them, or be like, hey, puppy, and it's like, no, don't do that, leave them alone. And he was like, we just kind of leave them alone. We don't bother them. But it's kind of a problem too. And he was dealing with something in his neighborhood where there's a wild pit bull on the loose. Well, it's not wild, but it's like a very badly behaved pit bull that the people refuse to keep on a leash. And so he's actually attacked a couple kids while they're riding their bikes. Like, it'll run after them and nip at them and bite them. So the parents are pissed off about it. And there's an individual, the faculty member, who was like, you know what, I'm about to go shoot that dog, but I can't. So he was telling this person, I think I'm gonna maybe hire someone who's not Navajo, because we're not supposed to be killing these animals. And he was like, really, you can't kill them? Like, no. And he was like, is it like, are dogs to your people the way cows are to people in India? And he's like, not really. But he was like, it kind of is similar though, because like we see images in the media about that land base, and there's often cows just like roaming in the streets, because to the people the animal is sacred, so they kind of let it just be, let it roam freely. And so this person was comparing our res dogs to these sacred cows, which I thought was so funny. But yeah, so that's the topic. Those are some issues that people may be aware of. So
Yeah, and then getting the animals fixed, the animals that you have in your house, getting them fixed, because I've already had twice a dog have a litter underneath my shed. And the owners of the animals, you're like, who do these puppies belong to? Who did the mom belong to? But now they're on my property and I have to take care of them, and I have to find a house for them. And then the same thing with their cats that you guys seen grow up since December or something along the way. And they just have their litter underneath our house. And now we're stuck with 5 cats or 6 dogs that were we didn't do anything to get these animals, and now we're stuck trying to rehome them or release them to the shelters.
I was gonna ask, what do you think that's a tea topic about, like spades and neuters?
Because they definitely ruin the ecosystem. I feel like with cats, how they're a predator, and so they kind of ruin the natural ecosystem in different places. But then also there's the risk of different types of diseases, especially with dogs and parvo. In Cameron, we have parvo just all over the place because puppies get born all over the place. They wander around, they spread the disease everywhere. So if you have a dog that you actually take care of and you want to love, and or puppies, and these other stray animals wandering around can get your animal sick and they can die. It's a really horrible death because they basically stop eating, they stop drinking, and they just wither away slowly.
Yeah, that's dark. I think for me, the reason why I think it's a tea topic is because oftentimes it falls, like the responsibility of that falls on the owner, right? And there's a lot of people that just, they don't do it. They don't make time to go to the free clinics, or they don't make time to budget, for the surgeries themselves. And then or they don't buy leashes. And I think people treat some people, they treat their animals like their children. and they're like they start acting like dog parents, like don't tell me how to raise my dog, kind of thing. Don't tell me how to care for my dog. It's like, well, you're doing a bad job, gah.
Yeah, and then the overpopulation of like dogs and cats isn't just the Navajo Nation. All over the US there's like the different shelters are at capacity. So there's nowhere to take extra animals and sometimes they just have to euthanize them because
That's
there's
really
just there's no
sad.
space, there's no one to adopt them, there's nowhere to put them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember you've always been a big advocate of having animals spayed or neutered. And I remember you mentioning it like, did you do it yet? I'm like, yeah. Or like when I told you that I took the dogs in to do that, you were like, yay, like cheering me on.
Well, because I'm the person who gets pets just by proxy. Like they
Hmm.
show up to my house and they don't go away,
Hmm.
and or they have a litter underneath my house. It's like, great, now I have a bunch of mouths to feed. And
Oh
it's
my God. I know. My uncle, he's got like God, like over 10 dogs. And at one time he had 14 cats. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, dude. And they're just like running wild in that whole space. And I don't like it. And I'm just like, I don't know.
yeah, but it's also really hard, especially after the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Like my little brother, he took over his dad's house and that came with a dog. And
Mm-hmm.
so while everyone was working on the funeral arrangements and getting everything ready,
Mm-hmm.
the dog got pregnant and
Mm.
had 10 puppies. And he's like, "What do
Mm-hmm.
I do with these 10 puppies?" I don't he works in Flagstaff, so he's gone, 10 hours out of the day. He can't train them, he can't do anything with them. And then they got sick. There was like some weird sickness that lives on the sand, and they
Mm.
all got it and they all died. And he was just
Oh,
heartbroken.
that's
And
sad.
then the second, like, cuz his dad had two dogs. One was from a previous litter of the first dog. And then while they were dealing with the 10 puppies inside, she got pregnant. And now they're trying to find homes for that new dog.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the shelters told him, they're like, "Hey, we're not taking any more animals from you. We took the
Mm-hmm.
10 puppies, most of them passed away. I think one maybe survived, but it had like severe brain damage."
Oh no. They can tell when dogs have brain damage?
Yeah,
Really? That's
because
crazy.
animals are supposed just like kids or people, they have specific developmental markers
Mm-hmm.
and displays.
I never met a dog that had brain damage.
They usually euthanize them, that's why.
Really? Dang,
Who's
that's
gonna adopt a
crazy.
dog with brain damage? Not many
I've never
people.
adopted a dog. I always just inherit res dogs too. Like I've never gone through that whole process. Like our dogs, there was so there's like a little neighborhood watch where I live. And it's these like sweet older ladies. And so it started out with students where they were like, we need to, take care of the animals in the community. So if there were strays, they would gather them and then hand them off to the Humane Society. And then when those students graduated, no one really took over. So these, older ladies, they kind of formed their own group and they would gather all these little, like all these strays. And then they would meet up with the Humane Society and then they would hand them off. And one time our neighbor was like, "Hey, I have two puppies at my place right now. We're gonna take them to Gallup in a couple days, but if you want a puppy, you want to come look." So we went over there and it was during the winter. And there was this like chubby, fluffy dog that wasn't that cute, and there was a smaller, really cute dog, and it was a little thinner though. And the kids really liked the fluffy dog, even though it wasn't that cute. And I was like, it totally just looked like a mutt. Like you could tell, it was like typical fluffy res dog. And so I was like, okay. And then we took that puppy and it became the family dog. And I mean, she grew up to be like really cute, but at first I didn't think so. But we took care of her, so we got her vaccinations, we got her spayed, and yeah, we do our best to like keep her on a leash and walk her and do that whole thing. But the kids are learning now that it's like a full-time lifetime commitment. You know what I mean? When you have a dog, you can't just like get rid of it when it grows up to be an adult. You have to care for it for its whole life. So now they're more careful about getting puppies. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't do that. I don't think it's the norm for people to be like, oh, I'm going to take the responsibility of this animal and I'm going to provide it health care. And you know what I mean? I'm going to get it birth control. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, like when I first had my first cat, Morticia, I was
Hmm.
telling my mom, I'm like, oh yeah, we went and got her, like, we got her fixed, and then she had an allergic reaction, so we had to get the medicine for that. And then, like, I think a couple months before that, she had like some weird little like worms in her stomach, so
Hmm.
we went and paid for more medication for that. And the mom's like, oh wow, you're treating her like a kid. I'm like, what do you mean? It's just proper pet care. Um,
See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. Like, I'm guilty of like, this dog was the first time I ever took it to like the vet, the first time I ever took it to do any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Because all the dogs I had growing up, all the cats I had growing up, we never did that. So, and the reason why I did it this time isn't because I'm like this great, like knowledgeable person. It's because it's mandatory where I live, where they regulate the animals. And if you don't, if you don't follow the rules and they don't have their tags and everything, they'll just take them. So for that reason, like I had to be done, right? But when I was growing up, we didn't do any of that. So I thought it was so weird. Like I really do. I think it's really weird when people take like really good care of their animals because it's so abnormal to me.
that I think that's like your mindset on that is sort of the norm on the res is like, oh, like they're alive and they're outside. If they live to
Mhm.
the next day, that's great. If they don't, then
And you know what's crazy? Like, so in my household, if a dog started to show problems, like say it got sick or like, I don't know, there was something wrong with it, like they would just kill it. Like problem solved, and I'm just like, that was how I grew up. It's like, oh, the dog's having problems, shoot it, like if a horse breaks its leg, right? You just kill it. Kind of the same way. But if it lives and it's like, you're a survivor, you're one of us, you can be part of the family.
yeah, but I guess that kind of goes into like the next thing of like pets versus workers versus livestock. So
Oh
like for
yeah.
like my cats and everything, they're pets. They live in the house. We kind of called Morticia my first child because I was always saying like if I can keep this cat alive for at least 6 years, maybe I can keep a kid alive, you know? And then with this new cat we have Wednesday, because they're both black, so we have like Morticia and then Wednesday, the daughter. But now we're teaching Frankie, like, hey, this is kind of like your sister cat, and then so now she takes on the roles like, oh, I'll feed her. I take good care of my sister, and she
Aw, that's
hugs her, and
cute.
we treat her like a part of the family. But then my mom's side of the family with like the sheep herding dogs.
Mhm.
I was always told you're not supposed to pet them, you're not supposed to play with them and get
Mhm.
them used to human contact because they're work dogs, They need to protect the sheep from everyone. So they can't be too nice to humans, otherwise they're not doing their job properly.
Mhm. We had three dogs that like when I was growing up, I remember we had three dogs. We're like a cat family for the most part. We always had cats. And then we got three dogs, and one of them was a mutt. She was really cool though, like a really good dog who lived, I mean, she lived a really long life. Like she got shot, she got run over, she got bit by a snake, and she lived. She was one of us. And then we got two puppies that were given to us, and they were half dingo wolf and half I think it was Rottweiler, I think. It was crazy. It was a crazy breed, but they were like the best dogs we'd ever had. They were so good. They were so protective. And we lived like in the middle of nowhere in Tonalea. We kind of lived in this valley, and there were all these like rocks up ahead. And I mean, in that area, there's like wild animals, like lions would be on the rocks, you know what I mean? Like sometimes, like lions would come down from the mountains and we would see them. There were always like coyotes, and there were like snakes, you know what I mean? And so when we're out playing, the dogs would protect us. Like they would protect us from snakes. They would warn us if there was like a lion, or if there was like a wild animal around. And they would protect us from other dogs too. So they were really good with us kids. Like they never hurt us or anything. But my dad used to always like be really strict of like, don't let them ever taste blood. You know what I mean? So like we would actually cook their meat for them before we gave it to them, like say if we butchered or something. But my dad was always like, don't ever let them taste blood. If you see a carcass, don't let them go near it. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So they were really good dogs, but like those dingoes, they were crazy. Like when they got mad, I swear like their whole face went back like this and you would just see teeth. It was crazy. They looked all scary and like their ears would go back and they just looked menacing. It was really cool, but they were good dogs. And those dogs I remember my parents did get them vaccinated and all of that and neutered and spayed. And my dad would take them rabbit hunting. And that was the only time when I guess like after a while, they got used to that and they would actually go chase rabbits and stuff. And then my dad would shoot it. I don't know, like a whole thing they did. They were like bros, but that was like my first introduction to having dogs. And they were like a pack and they took care of us. But I think, I don't know, I forgot how they passed away, but I think they got run over or something. But the white dog lived with us for a long time. Like we had her for like my sister like grew up with that dog and she took care of us and she was really old. And then one day she just kind of like, went away and she laid under a bush and she like fell asleep and didn't wake back up. It was like really sad. But yeah, that was like the only time I ever had dogs though. And I think like they were kind of like work dogs. They weren't allowed in the house. You know what I mean? They were only like their job was to protect the house and to protect the kids. And they did that. So they were like loving dogs, like sweet dogs, but like they weren't allowed inside or anything. Every now and then we give them baths and stuff. We always made sure they had like flea tick collars or medicine and stuff. But other than that, we didn't like baby them.
There's also like the other topic of like livestock, which is like the sheep, horses, cattle, and everything. And I know there's some people who feel like horses are sometimes their pets because like you can
Mm-hmm.
develop a really strong bond with the different horses you raise and train.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my family doesn't have any livestock, so I'm not really familiar with what that relationship is. But I mean, my family was displaced during relocation. So, everything they had, all their livestock, like cows, horses, sheep, they lost all of that, and all their crops and everything. So, I mean, when you're displaced from your home and you lose everything, it changes, and so that happened in the 70s, like before I was born, or like 70s, 80s, but it happened before I was born. And so, or around the time I was born. Yeah, because I remember going to my grandma's house um a long, long, long time ago before they moved. So it was early in my life, but I don't remember like I was so young, you know what I mean? I don't remember that life because for the majority of my life, the childhood I do remember very clearly. Um they didn't have any livestock. You know what I mean? So I don't really know, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I've talked to people who like work with horses really close. There's that stereotype of like a horse girl of like where, girls just love
Yeah.
horses and everything. But then
Mhm,
also on my Nelly's side, they have a couple of horses out to where the cattle are, but they're
mhm,
not treated like that. They're work horses. We get on them to ride around and bring the cattle in, and then they just
mhm,
stay there and with the cattle.
mhm.
So I
Yeah,
just feel
I
like
want to
there's like
get
that
horses.
interesting difference.
Yeah, I think I had a pony. A pony was given to me a long time ago. And then my parents told my uncle to take care of it because he has a grazing permit and he had land and all that. And he sold it.
Oh no.
And so when it was time for me to get married, he hosted the entire wedding. Like he provided everything because I was like, I remember you sold my pony. And we negotiated. It was awesome though. They took really good care of me and my husband when we got married. It was a good trade, eh? Just kidding. No. Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I have extended family like that, like my dad's uncle who has a grazing permit and they have horses and they have cattle and sheep and they have sheepdogs, they're not the kind of dogs that you're like gonna play with. My dad picks on them, but for the most part, they kind of just hang out with the sheep. They hang around the corral. So Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that though. Like as far as that being a tea topic, I don't know what to
I
say
don't I
about it.
don't think it's like a tea topic. I think it's more of like an anecdote of like the different ways our culture views animals.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm really like I'm not one of those people that's ever gonna treat my pet like a baby. I reserve that for human interaction only. I just can't do it. Like when I see people in the city pushing their dogs in strollers or wearing the carrying cases, I'm just like, oh, that's gross. I can't get past it. I'm like, I turn into this grumpy grandma, that's just like, ew, like get it outside, throw it out. It doesn't belong, let it walk. Or I see dogs with shoes. And I'm like, and I know like, I know people that go hiking with dogs and they get them little shoes with the grips so they don't like hurt, like cut or burn their paws or anything. But to me, I'm just like, God gave it that already. You know what I mean? Like, why are you
Well,
buying shoes?
kinda.
I know, you know.
I see the thing for like shoes for like Phoenix, where
Oh
like
yeah.
the pavement and the sidewalk is like 100 degrees, and they're like, would you walk on 100-degree pavement? No, then put something on your pet that technically isn't supposed to be there in that
Yeah.
climate. But
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm a little, that's probably the T. Adrian is awful. She doesn't like animals to be babied. But no, I mean, it's just not my way. I don't know. I don't really care what other people do. I think it's kind of gross, but that's just my personal opinion. I don't do that.
no,
Okay.
I get like I understand. Like I have a cousin, she has this little dog,
Hmm.
Carlos, and we call him like a little sheep because he looks like those dogs with like the curly fuzzy hair.
Hmm.
So he looks like a tiny little lamb. And so we make fun of him. It's like that's her child, that's her little baby, Carlos.
Oh my God. When I'm at a place where like I'm stable and I have my hook on my home site lease, I really want a pig. Like I want a piglet and I want chickens and yeah,
The
I want
whole
a donkey.
farm.
Yeah, I do. I want rabbits. Oh my God, that'd be so cute. And a horse. I want two horses. I'm just putting it out there. Putting it out to
Horses
the
are so
universe.
expensive,
I
especially if you need to
know.
get the hay. I
I want a
think I saw
stable.
they're like $20 a
Hmm.
bale.
They're like 2022. Yeah, right now.
And I remember when we had horses, we were like at $11, $12 a bale. We're like, that's too much. Because we had
Hmm.
like 3 or 4 horses and they ate 2 bales a day.
Hmm. I know my mom, she grew when before they were removed, she and all her siblings, they all had their own horses, right? Like my Che had his own horse, my grandma had her own horse, and they were like a family of 8. So they had their own little, and they were well known for their horses. And I was telling my mom that I wanted to get horses, and she was like, that's a lot of work. And she's like, do you know how much work it is to take care of a horse? Do you know what you have to do to groom it and care for it? She was like, it's a constant thing. Like every day you need to be out there with the horse. You can't just be like, you can't just up and go. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like you can't be out traveling. Like people I know who have animals, they don't travel a lot. Like they have to be there with their sheep, they have to be there with their livestock and take care of them. Like that's what my aunt, I always tell her, why don't you come visit? And she's like, I can't. I have my sheep. You know what I mean? Like I can't up and go anytime. And I live like all the way on the other side of the res too. So I'm like, okay. But she's like, you have to come to me. And I'm like, okay, that works. Like you can just put your kids in a car seat. She's like, I don't want to just load up all my animals. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I was like,
yeah.
oh, I didn't even think about that. You know what I mean? So yeah, but my mom was like, it's a lot of work. And so I was like, okay. So she's like, maybe you should rethink that. And she's like, plus it's expensive. You have to have the infrastructure in place, like a stable. You have to make sure they have all their needs met. You have to make sure you have a vehicle and a horse trailer that can facilitate transport. So I was like, oh, well, I have to work really hard.
Yeah, we got into horses because my mom dated a guy who was really wanted a rodeo family.
Hmm.
But I just wasn't competitive. so I really didn't like it.
Dang, could have been a barrel racer.
Everyone says I was really good at it, and I'm like, but I hate it so
Really?
much. I hate competing. I'm not competitive. The moment anything turns into a competition, I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah, once the applause begin, I'm out.
Not the applause, but like the, oh, who's gonna win? You're gonna, well, like that competitive, like I gotta win, I gotta be the best. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go now.
Mhm. Yeah, you guys have fun with that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just some weird internal like
hmm
switch. It's like, ah, now I'm done with this. Bye.
hmm
It was fun while it lasted.
My mom was a barrel racer, and I used to want to be a jockey when I was younger. That was like the thing. And then my aunts were all like, I think you're too chubby to be a jockey.
You could lose
Like,
the weight.
I know, because I was chubby. They're like, you're too chubby. You have to be really thin. I was like, ugh,
You have
because
to
you
weigh
have to be thin.
nothing,
Mhm.
so the horse doesn't get weighed down.
Yeah, I was like, dang it, because like just the idea of just moving so fast. You know what I mean? It was just so exhilarating to me. But one time I was riding with my cousin, my younger cousin, and I don't know what happened or what we encountered, but the horse like reared up like that and we fell off. And she was like, I'm never riding with you again. She didn't want to get back on the horse. And I was like, I don't know if it saw a snake or something, but it did that, like went up. And I was like, shoot, it got scared and we fell off. And then after that, we're like scared. Everyone's like, you have to get back on. And she didn't want to. I don't know if she ever got back on, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyways.
it could be a traumatizing thing. Thinking,
Yeah, falling off a horse.
talking about traumatizing things, do we
Oh
want to talk
no.
about like the dog attacks
Oh yeah.
on the reservation?
Okay, everyone. Trigger warning A.
It
It's gonna
is.
get dark. It
There was
is.
one really sad story, remember?
So I pulled some stories from the Navajo Times. This one is from 2021, but the headline is Navajo Animal Control Increase in Dog Attacks During Pandemic. So, as some of you may remember, Jaralyn Nez was very vocal about why we need to be more responsible with animal control. And this article kind of covers some of that, like the laws related to like to feral dogs, but also to the responsibility of pet owners. So this is really interesting. And it was, I believe it was linked to that story that you're talking about, Kelsey. I don't know if you want to talk about that. A, I don't think I have that headline, but let me pull up the other one. So this one is penalties increased for dog attacks. So there were like so many dog attacks that it got the attention of the Navajo Nation government, where dogs were injuring, even killing, and like other animals like livestock, but also a person. And that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I remember like reading an article either in 2000 or 2019,
Mm-hmm.
and she was in eighth grade, or she was about to be promoted, and she
Mm-hmm.
was just doing her normal run, and a pack of like 20 dogs attacked and
Mm-hmm.
killed her.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew exactly who owned the dogs. It was like a house like a half a mile or so away, and that
Mm-hmm.
house has been reported multiple times for the aggressive dogs, but nothing was getting done, and then she just was killed.
And like right here in this headline, it states that a total of 6 deaths involving dog packs and incidents where people had been mauled to the point of losing limbs, ears, and arms. That's freaking crazy. And then right here, it also states that this quote reads, our current situation on Navajo is we have 100 plus communities, but we have only 5 animal control officers, not offices, but officers to address the hundreds of issues, right? In this year, 2021, there were 280 bite cases on Navajo, and they impounded over 5,000 dogs or 5,000 cases involving 10,000 animals. That's crazy. So it's not just like a little annoyance within the community, like, oh, there's res dogs, like there's 5 at the store. No, like 10,000 animals. That's insane. So this is a really good article. We'll put the links down below if you want to learn more about that. And then there's a third one. Roaming dogs kill 15 sheep. This one was in 2019, so that's pretty brutal right there. But this is what we're talking about. And what I think people don't understand is that, there are still families that rely heavily on their livestock as their source of income. So, you can sell a sheep and then you can buy your kids clothes, like back to school clothes, you can pay tuition, with the sale of a cow, there's things that like livestock is really important to our people. And when these wild dogs or these feral dogs are running around murdering them, it puts a lot of people's livelihood, at risk. Even if the person itself doesn't get attacked, if it attacks their livelihood, then it's a really serious problem. So
Yeah, and then yeah, they get aggressive when they become feral and end up in packs with each other. And there's
mhm,
so much wild open land, it's hard to like track them down. But then
mhm,
also like they end up dead in the middle of the highway because,
mhm,
tourists are just driving as fast as they can
mhm.
through the res.
Interesting.
Like I think on a like daily, almost weekly basis, there's a
Mhm.
dead dog on Highway 89 in Cameron.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that story about that girl, and that was so freaking sad. I mean, that is unexcusable and it's avoidable. That's the thing about it. That's what was so tragic, I think, is like that's something that could have been avoided had those complaints been addressed and the issues with those dogs. Like, I mean, one complaint should have meant that the dog owners or where the people that live in the area would have like, okay, we need to do something about this. But they go to that home and like it was crazy. I remember some of the stories that were shared in the media was like when they went to that home, those dogs were just running free and they were like aggressive. And even where they were living, they weren't being properly kept for or cared for. So like the where they were living and what they were being fed was minimal. So they were kind of like the animals, they have this, aside from a pack mentality, they also have these survival traits, right? If they're not being fed, they're going to start hunting for food. And if there's a whole bunch of them that need to eat, they're going to attack something. And unfortunately, they attacked this young girl. And it was so sad because she had so much going for her, like she had a bright future, a whole life ahead of her, and she got attacked. And it was is so it's so it's like inexcusable to me.
Yeah.
So
And it was definitely all the owner's responsibility to get their dogs
mhm.
fixed, make sure, they're not aggressive towards people, and just
I
to
know.
keep them contained within their own like home site lease.
Hmm. I know what pissed me off too was like, I mean, I know fences are expensive, but shoot, if you have a bunch of crazy dogs, like put those fences up. But I mean, what really got to me, I remember online, when these stories were being posted online, I remember that people were trying to put blame on her family, like on the girl and on her family. Like, why weren't they there to protect her? Why wasn't someone there to save her? And it's like, no, like you can't put the blame there. Like the blame is not on her or her family. It's on those dogs and the people that are supposed to be responsible for caring for those dogs, that didn't take the time to, like heed those warnings that were there, those complaints that were made, the recommendations that were made that were ignored, and it led to that. And it never should get to that level. It's really messed up. But I remember that like really pissed me off.
Yeah.
I was heated. Kidding. Like on my keyboard.
Keyboard warrior just typing
Yeah,
away.
tied my bandana. Yeah,
All right. So we're kind of here at the end of the episode. Kind of wanted to restate some of the stuff that was talked about during the live stream that I did a couple
oh
weeks
yeah.
ago. So the channels kind of go down to 2 videos a month. And that's because, well, the main reason is because I'm pregnant, and so it's making editing and doing a lot of that stuff a lot harder on me, just because I have a lot of appointments and a lot of other things I need to do, um, and a lot of other jobs I need to work on. And then also Adrian has a lot of exciting stuff too in her life, you know. We get busy, so we
Mm-hmm.
need to kind of like dial this channel down a little bit. But we are asking for audience input for some topic ideas, and we're collecting them and trying to figure out when we'll be able to make those applicable for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think those are the updates I mainly talked about on the live stream.
Yeah, and I just want to apologize for not being able to make it. I was traveling when the live stream happened, and I had it written down in my calendar for this weekend. So that was my bad. I wasn't expecting it. And I thought I could make it, but like it was really chaotic because I had a full day scheduled and I was hoping to kind of squeeze it in. But anyways, I apologize for that. But yeah, there's a lot of exciting things happen. I do have a few vlogs that I've edited and I'm going to post up this summer, like concert travel vlogs, which, you know, that's always fun. And then there's a couple people who have expressed interest in joining us on Navajo Tea Time. So I don't know if you guys know of Marco Arviso. He is a jeweler and he's someone that I would love to bring on. He makes really amazing jewelry. And, you know, as you know, Kelsey and I are big supporters of entrepreneurs, small business development on Navajo. And I think giving people a platform to talk about their work and their work ethic, I think is really cool, or even just their journey of how they took their idea and turned it into a business. So if you guys have questions that you would like to ask, or if there's any specific like topics targeted toward that, we could probably incorporate that into the conversation. So you can post those down below in the comment section. And then there's another individual, her name is Cassandra Begay. She's based out of Utah right now, but she's done a lot of really great work with organizations on Navajo. When I met her, she was, well, I've actually known her for a long time because we both grew up in Tuba City, Arizona, but we had in a couple intersections. The first one was through the Navajo Hopi Families COVID Relief Group. So she was working with them for a number of years throughout the pandemic, you know, helping to bring in support, but also to provide support for families that were hit really hard during that time. And then we intersected again during campaign season. So she's a really cool person, really like a bright, shining light, very intelligent. And I think it would be really cool to have her come on and join us and, you know, just talk about maybe some issues that we might not be aware of just because she's kind of coming from a different region. But I think it's kind of good to bring in people who are from Navajo. They have, you know, strong roots here, but they're also doing work on the outside. And I think that's something that Kelsey and I have talked about, is like bringing people in who I think some might consider urban natives, you know, but I mean, they're relevant, you know, and they're doing a lot of great work too. And they have some great stories to tell and share. So I think opening the door for that would be really cool. So those are two people that I hope we can bring on later this year. We also have a wish list of people that we're going to reach out to and ask if they can join us to talk about hot tea topics that do affect Navajo and Indian country as a whole. So keep a lookout for that. But if you guys have any suggestions, please post them in the comment section, or you can email us at navajoteatime@gmail.com. And we might also start putting up some polls on YouTube. So if you're subscribed, you'll get notifications every time you put up a poll, and then your voice can be heard in that way too. So, yep, that's all I wanted to share with you all.
All right, so we'll see you guys next video.
Yep, see ya. Bye.
She just smashed it into his face. Yeah. Not a very Navajo friendly. It's like a weird label you're putting on yourself.
They protect us, they guide us, you know. And my father, he worked in law enforcement, so he was.
You witnessed police pulling over cars.
If you got to slap a senator, you slap a senator. Incorporating language and cultural aspects into. Who's your celebrity crush?
Pass.
It's a point where you're just like, what am I doing?